In this podcast episode, J.L. Collins shares his insights on achieving financial independence through disciplined saving, investing, and thoughtful lifestyle choices. The conversation explores common misconceptions about money, the pitfalls of homeownership for young wealth seekers, the emotional challenges of investing, and why speculative assets like Bitcoin often do not align with long-term wealth building. JL also highlights the value of broad-based index investing, the importance of avoiding debt, and the nuanced relationship between money, happiness, and life's deeper meaning. J.L. Collins begins by outlining the foundational principles to financial independence. Avoid debt, live below your means, and invest the surplus. He explains that cultural attitudes treat money primarily as a means to consume rather than a tool for purchasing freedom. Redirecting some income into investments lets your money earn money, which ultimately buys you the freedom to stop exchanging labor for wages. He stresses that people with lower incomes often have an easier path to financial independence due to fewer social pressures to keep up appearances, unlike high earners who may feel compelled to compete with peers and therefore stretch their finances thin. One of the more controversial opinions JL shares is that buying a house early, especially if stretching to the bank's limits, can dramatically inflate your cost of living and hinder financial independence. Unlike rent, which is generally fixed and predictable, homeownership entails variable expenses such as maintenance, property taxes, and unexpected repairs that can be costly and disruptive. People often overpay for homes, drawn by lenders willing to loan the maximum amount, which creates a financial burden. Additionally, owning a house can reduce your geographic and career flexibility, effectively anchoring you to one location and reducing your ability to seize new opportunities. While acknowledging that owning a home can have psychological benefits, JL views it largely as an expensive indulgence rather than a sound investment for young people prioritizing wealth accumulation. Debt is described as a ball and chain, severely restricting your path to financial independence. JL distinguishes between beneficial business debt and consumer debt, which typically traps individuals in a cycle of payments that erode financial freedom. He urges cutting out unnecessary expenses and resisting societal pressure to acquire must-have luxuries like expensive cars and upscale housing that often derail saving efforts. The discipline to live on less than you earn and steer money toward assets that grow wealth is paramount. Importantly, JL reframes this approach not as deprivation, but as a strategic choice to prioritize freedom over fleeting consumption. JL advocates investing primarily in broad-based, low-cost stock index funds, such as Vanguard's Total Stock Market Index Fund, VTSAX. These funds include thousands of publicly traded companies, providing diversification and automatic exposure to the economy's growth without the need to pick individual winners. He highlights the self-cleansing nature of the market. Companies that fail are replaced over time by more successful ones, so owning the entire index ensures you benefit regardless of which companies dominate at any given time. Although the NASDAQ 100 and tech-heavy sectors have performed strongly over the past decade, JL advises caution against chasing trends, stressing the value of owning a broad market index to avoid the risk of misjudgment. While recognizing Bitcoin's past tremendous gains, JL classifies it as speculation rather than investing. Its volatility and lack of intrinsic operating value make it risky as a wealth-building asset. He argues that success stories of early adopters are exceptions rather than norms, and without a crystal ball predicting Bitcoin's future, it is not a prudent investment for most people. The distinction between speculation, short-term, high-risk gambles, and investing, long-term ownership in productive assets generating real value, is emphasized, warning listeners against chasing hype or speculative ventures as a primary strategy. Volatility in stocks can provoke fear-driven mistakes, such as panic selling, which undermines long-term wealth creation. JL underscores the critical role of emotional discipline and patience. He recounts stories of investors who sold during downturns only to miss the market rebounds, highlighting that the stock market's natural ups and downs require a steady hand and a long-term perspective. The advice from investing legends like Jack Bogle and Charlie Munger is to buy broad index funds and hold them without constant monitoring or frequent trading. JL also shares data showing that women tend to outperform men in investing due to their lower tendency to overtrade and tinker with portfolios, further reinforcing the importance of emotional control in investing success. JL explains the benefits of using tax-advantaged retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs, which allow investments to grow tax-deferred or tax-free depending on the account type. While taxes are not avoided permanently in these vehicles, deferring them until retirement often results in lower overall tax rates due to reduced income. He also highlights the explosive power of compounding, the process where investment gains themselves generate further gains over time. Consistently investing even modest amounts early can grow into significant wealth over decades, with compounding growth accelerating dramatically after years of accumulation. Acknowledging human tendencies to seek validation and fulfillment through consumption, JL warns against equating spending with happiness. He shares personal anecdotes of impulsive purchases that delivered only temporary satisfaction while digging financial holes. Instead, he advocates for appreciating simplicity and valuing financial freedom above consumer goods. Money, in JL's view, removes stressors and unhappiness rather than directly creating happiness. This mindset allows people to enjoy life without being enslaved by material possessions or debt. The podcast clarifies the idea of FU money as having enough savings or investments to make life choices without fear, such as quitting a toxic job or saying no to pressure. JL reframes this as money accumulated gradually, providing increasing freedom even before full financial independence is achieved. It's the buffer that loosens constraints and allows one to act from a position of power rather than desperation, making the journey itself rewarding and empowering. JL and the host discuss the advantage young people have in maintaining mobility and flexibility by renting rather than owning homes. This flexibility enables taking advantage of career opportunities in different locations without being burdened by fixed assets like mortgages. JL also emphasizes focusing on developing high-demand skills, which will evolve over time, especially with rapid technological changes like AI. Working at startups and being exposed to cutting-edge challenges is seen as valuable experience, even if accompanied by risk and failure, which is reframed as a necessary step for growth. The episode touches on how divorce can severely impact financial well-being, especially for wealthy individuals. Legal battles can drag on for years, consuming significant resources and forcing liquidation or division of assets that were built over decades. JL stresses the importance of understanding financial implications when choosing a life partner and considering prenuptial agreements, highlighting the complexity and emotional toll of these situations. At age 75, JL shares a mature perspective on life's meaning, or rather the lack thereof, suggesting that human life in the vast cosmos carries no inherent meaning or purpose. For him, the best one can do is live well by treating others kindly and making the most of the given one life. He recounts poignant personal regrets involving missed emotional moments with his late father, but expresses grace and acceptance toward those experiences. Despite his financial success, JL emphasizes that money cannot buy happiness, though it can remove hardships and allow for greater freedom. JL advises caution with financial advisors due to potential conflicts of interest, especially those paid based on assets under management. He warns that advisors might be incentivized to recommend keeping money invested to preserve their fees rather than advising the best course for clients, such as paying off debt. Listeners are encouraged to educate themselves, especially on investment basics, since many can manage their own portfolios without paying for advice that may not be impartial. JL reveals his personal allocation, heavily weighted towards stocks, about 80%, with bonds and cash making up the rest. This allocation is aggressive and suitable for his long-term perspective and risk tolerance, but may not fit everyone, especially older investors or those with shorter time horizons. He explains bonds as loans to governments or corporations that pay interest, considered less volatile than stocks, but with lower long-term growth potential. Throughout the conversation, JL touches on how cultural norms, psychological biases, and emotional patterns influence financial behavior. He discusses how future selves often feel like strangers to our younger minds, making it difficult to prioritize saving for decades away. The podcast also addresses the lure of speculation and get-rich-quick mentalities that conflict with steady wealth building. Alongside financial advice, JL stresses the human side of money, empathy, emotional intelligence, and thoughtful choices that transcend logic alone.